Okay.
Madam Chair, it's 7 o'clock.
All right. Thanks so much. Thank you very much. Welcome, everyone. We are going to begin the June 21st meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee for the town of St. Andrews. Looking at recording of attendance, we have Mr. Cross missing tonight, but everyone else is present. We've got Xander and Miss Pung, sorry, at on Zoom, and we are ready to go. We have an agenda in front of us. I hope everyone's had the chance to review it. If there are no changes, I'm looking for a motion on the agenda. Thank you very much. Second, thanks so much. All right. So if there's no changes or debate or anything, we are going to just ask the question. All those in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All right. Thank you very much. That agenda is adopted. We welcome and we recognize that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Peskotomohkati people. And so welcome to our meeting. Declaration of conflict of interest is our next item. Is there anyone at this point looking to declare a conflict of interest? I see no hands. Thank you very much. Confirmation of minutes. Has everyone had the opportunity to go through the minutes? If there are no questions or edits, I'm looking for a motion on the adoption of the minutes. Kevin? Thank you. Mr. Tanner, thank you very much. All right. Any questions, comments? There being none, I don't believe. All those in favor of confirming the minutes from May 17th, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And none opposed. Those minutes are adopted. All right. So moving through our agenda, we have no presentations or delegations. We have some zoning applications. We're looking for some, the town council actually has requested our views on a few applications tonight. So we will be looking at those. And the first one is PAC 230602. We're going to look for these proposed amendment to the zoning of PID 01235240, the amendment of Z 2204 to the zoning bylaw Z 2201, proposed amendment. And so I believe I am turning this over. Oh, sorry, to Mr. Goldberg.
Yeah, it's me, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Sorry, the screen just, I was not ready for that. Sorry about that.
Just trying to get the jump on everybody.
I was taking too long. Over to you.
Thank you. Z 2204 bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw is a rezoning, a more straightforward rezoning than the next one we'll talk about, but we'll get there. So this is, as was said, PID 01325240. It's about a 5.5 acre vacant lot in the service residential zone. And you can see it on the map here. That's an older aerial photo. It's right at the end of the Bar Road. If you're heading back from Minister's Island, people are probably aware of it because it's been pretty much clear cut, and everybody's been wondering what's happening there. So this is what is being proposed. At least it's an apartment complex, and what the applicants are proposing is 70 to 120 dwelling units spread over 12 buildings on 4 properties. So there would be a subdivision involved in this as well, but the first step would be rezoning the property to allow for that use of land. The applicant spoke at council Monday night and sort of said it would be like a campus style with smaller but more spread out buildings. It would involve a new public road, and And the only zone that would accommodate this project is the MR2 zone. That's the high density residential zone. And these are just a few more pictures. So again, an older picture on the left, but then I did go out there with the drone and get some shots from above. So very clear cut. And this is the proposed site plan. It's still like fairly early concept stages, so it's possible things will change. But I think the unit numbers are relatively stable, at least with that range. So you can see the public road with proper turnaround and proper width and everything, leaving space for future development if necessary. And then you have a bit of a private road coming into the back, 2 properties. But it's and this is I think they're still not sure about 2 or 3 story buildings, and that's something that might be dealt with by council. But this is their sort of very early concept elevation. I think they're still very open to feedback, and the design is definitely not set in stone at this point. Certainly not before any of the approvals are there. So looking at the municipal plan policies, obviously we we look at these every time we have a rezoning, and sustainability of land use, adding or mixing uses and densities, supporting pedestrian development, and improving energy efficiency wherever feasible and appropriate. So you would have a lot of density added with this in an already serviced area. So I mean, you would have to run services from the 127 down the public road, but that would be a good use of municipal infrastructure. And it's not too far from the downtown. It's for some folks it would be walking distance. I think some of their target demographic is seniors, so there would be plenty of parking there if that's people need that. But there are some matters with the site plan that I think have paid some heed to pedestrian friendly and thinking about future public transit. But that's going to be more for land for public purposes at the subdivision stage. Anyway, so economy policies. I think we've seen this one a lot before, and it's kind of the same story that there's still a lack of rental housing, and that's impacting local businesses and institutions. And then the housing policy here talks about the need for development of housing to meet the needs of specific demographics, including seniors and students. It also deals with this type of housing being appropriate for the character of the town and where it is in town. So this type of rental unit, there's some question as to cost and affordability. That probably has to do with discussions with the town and with council. And they may seek other funding, but these would definitely be what are considered missing middle housing, which is a type that I think all levels, or at least federal and provincial levels of government, are very supportive of. So and they are definitely needed. I mean, I know there's been more development of this type of thing, but there's still a very deep need in St. Andrews. So yeah, that's really what I'm saying there. One of the fastest growing municipalities in the province, and already starting from a point of not having enough rental housing. So here, avoiding some of the issues that you have with downtown development, with parking, with that not being an issue here. And it's always worth considering what is allowed now. And the developer here actually did come to council with a previous plan that was lower density that would be allowed in the service residential zone. And that could be 42 to 56. But it's not, I mean, it's up to, folks to think how much that is above that. But there could be considerable density with the zoning as it is now, meeting all necessary setbacks. So the proposed site plan, as I've said, meets all the parking and amenity space requirements. There might need to be one dimensional variance on lot width for one of the lots. But until you're sort of at the final stages and they're really at that subdivision plan, this in my opinion is still worth discussing it, and that may come back, it may not, we'll see. As well, because there's a public street, public services, land for public purposes, that's all part of the subdivision process. PAC will give a recommendation on that as well to council. We're not doing that tonight. That's going to be once they actually apply for the subdivision. And they're going to do that once the rezoning has been approved, if it is approved. And with the future street, there were some initial earlier drawings where it wasn't aligning with the Bar Road, and we discussed this with town staff, and we all felt like it would be much safer for traffic flow if these streets were aligned, so you could have a four-way stop. And one thing that council discussed is they're actually going to do, I believe, a traffic study for this area, and I'm not quite sure when that's going to be, but I think it would, these processes can take a while, so I think it would fit into this. There's more development happening there, and maybe when I'm done, Paul has a little bit more information on the timeline for that. This discussion again, housing in St. Andrews, these units are definitely needed, and it seems like as far as all locations go, this is a relatively good one. The developer has talked about getting funding to make this more affordable, and they did present at council on June 19th, answered a few questions. And there will be a public hearing of objections as per the Community Planning Act on July 4th. And that's really the opportunity for public feedback. So I don't know if anybody's here tonight, but generally public comments are directed at council, not at PAC. And those will be coming on July 4th. And then council will have PAC's views as well. And it's really important to remember with rezonings as well as with subdivisions, they allow council to enter into agreements or set resolutions that go above and beyond the existing zone, and that's something that council rezoning, sometimes based on PAC's recommendations. So the development agreement is can be any other requirements that sort of relate to the land use, and so just because there's rezoning, it doesn't mean that this could necessarily just have to meet the minimum standards of the zone currently. Council could have additional standards they wish to add. So with that, I will turn it back over to you, Madam Chair, and happy to answer any questions. I don't know if anybody from the developer is here tonight. It's possible, but I'll leave it in your hands.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gopin. So keeping in mind again tonight that we just received a lot of information about this plan. It looks, like it's advancing quite well, but tonight we are dealing only with our views on the rezoning of the land, correct? Thank you. So with that in mind, I will accept any comments, views from the committee at this point.
Can I just ask a question for
Yes,
clarification?
absolutely.
Xander, you said right now is zoned, they can do 42 to 56 units at the present time?
Yes, not exactly apartments, but you can do 3 to 4 units per lot in the service residential zone.
Okay. And they're seeking 70 to 120.
That's what this particular design, and once it gets to this point, that zone no longer accommodates it, and even the MR1 zone does not, so it's the MR2 zone for sure.
Okay. Okay. I will say I do like the fact that they are providing access for future streets, which I think we need to start doing more. I was concerned. My initial concern was this was going to be another cul-de-sac going in, and I think we really should stop supporting a lot of cul-de-sacs because we want to have that connection for active transportation, et cetera, et cetera. So I like the fact they're doing that in here. And you said that it is a public road, not a private road.
Yes, well, that's their request. I mean, it's always up to council if they accept it or not.
Okay.
Xander, I have one quick little question. When it's going to be converted, I see where it says, okay, if we move it to MR2 or not MR2, we're moving it. Yeah, we're moving it to MR2 or possibly. It says it's going to be 4 separate lots. So is that piece of property going to be divided into 4 separate lots, or is that the future expansion?
Well,
On 4 separate properties. So is that one piece of
with
property?
this
4
with this
separate
scale
properties?
development, so the entire property would be rezoned, and then it could be subdivided for the purposes that they're proposing here. It would, I'm sure, be a phased development, and that phasing is something that is the town puts in every development agreement, into subdivision agreements. There's timelines. They're very thorough. We've done these a number of times, and I think we have a very good process for it.
So Xander, just to follow up on Kevin's comment, then if we rezone it to MR2 and it's a phased, and when we heard the developer at the council meeting on Monday night, he did talk about the fact that it would be 2 to 3 buildings initially. Is that correct? Yeah. So then what happens if life happens and the rest of the buildings don't get built?
So unfortunately, something glitched there. I don't know if it was my internet, so my video's off. I missed a lot of that question.
That's okay, Xander.
Happens
I can fill that.
Okay,
Xander.
sure.
So within the subdivision agreement, what we would do is establish processes that would say, if you do not complete the phases, then lands would have to be returned back to natural state. So if they can't do the full build out and meet the requirements of the subdivision, we do build in other mechanisms to ensure that lands are returned back to a natural state.
Can I do a follow-up? So then do we rezone it back, or does it just stay as an MR2?
That property at that point would stay as an MR2 because you're rezoning whole PID. But Xander,
I can actually speak to that. So the Community Planning Act, Paul's absolutely right about the subdivision agreement returning the lands as well. There's usually performance bonds. So if there's actually money needed to clean things up, the town would be able to access that. But as far as the zoning goes, when you make a development agreement, if the conditions of the development agreement are not met, so you have timelines, 3, 5, 10 years, they're not met, the property will actually revert back to the zone it was before. And this is something that happened in town not too long ago. And I'm not quite certain of all like the specific details of how it works and if there's any additional process that has to happen, but that is definitely something that happens, is the land reverts back if conditions of the development agreement are not met.
Thanks, Xander.
Mr. Tanner, did you have any questions or? Okay. You're good. Okay, perfect. Well, it sounds like there's some general supportive comments here. Am I correct in assuming so, that we would provide council with our views that we would support the rezoning from service residential to MR2? at this point? All right,
Can I have a quick question?
yes.
Guess I'm on. I just want to say, I do like the location of this. I think this is an ideal location. Out of the 3 units to start with, are they going to put the road in? Or is it going to be the units closest to the Route 127 that's there now, or is it going to be further back?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I don't know if it's considered. Typically in these situations, you start closest to the road and move back, because one of your expenses is building road. So the less road you build at a time, the less money you're putting up front until you have stuff coming back in from the units being rented.
Right.
Not sure if it's appropriate now, but as far as the road, if it's a public road, does that mean that the town then puts in the infrastructure? Or would the developer have to fund that?
So through you, Madam Chair, the developer funds that. What ends up happening is they have to meet the standards of the 2017 municipal road standards that were designated by the province. So they have to build the road, build it to the standards, and then it gets vested into the town. So we don't actually put any upfront costs for it. It's all on the developer. So they have to put in the infrastructure, they have to put in the road, and it has to meet our engineered standards before we will inherit the road.
All right, well, all those in favor, if you're ready for the question, I'm going to formulate it. Or do I need? Yeah, I guess we do need a motion.
I'd make a motion that we pursue moving this property from service residential to MR2.
I'd second that.
All right. All right, if there's no further questions, that I would write a letter indicating that we support the rezoning from SR1 to MR2. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. None opposed. We'll move ahead with that. Thank you very much. All right, so now we have, thank you. Our next item is again, obtaining views of our committee to speak to a proposed amendment Z 2205 to the zoning bylaw Z 2201 for PID 013235991. This is to take a home from the service residential zone property, from the service residential zone into the multiple residential zone, and some text amendments as well. So we don't have a lot of background in our packages, so I'm looking forward to some review by Mr. Gopin, I believe.
So my apologies, Chair. When I was doing this, I was sick. So if I missed something, my apologies for the background.
Two of the other one.
That's
maybe?
probably why. Yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
then we're audibly surprised.
Okay. Well, I'll do my best. And I guess Councillor Harland at least would have heard the presentation from the applicant at council a few weeks ago. So we'll do the best we can. So this is another rezoning, but it also includes some text amendments. So and slightly different zones. So PID 013235991, 126 Reed Avenue, former animal hospital. If you've been driving into town recently, probably noticed it has a new coat of paint on it. And something might be going on there. And here's what is being proposed, at least. So there's currently a 2.5-story, 3,650 square foot residential building. That's the main building on the lot currently. And then there's 2 accessory buildings, one that will remain on the property and one that is going to be demolished. The applicant has proposed a rooming house in the main residential building. And what a rooming house means, or what it will mean more clearly if this zoning amendment happens, is private rooms, but shared kitchen, bathroom, and common areas. So it's a rental situation, but unlike an apartment, where you have a dwelling unit, a private dwelling unit, with its own kitchen, its own bathroom. This is more like a dorm style. Could be more like a roommate situation. Very typical for students, workers. Tends to be more affordable because you don't have quite as much private space. And currently, it's in this very strange area in the zoning bylaw. A rooming house is a defined use, but it's not clearly allowed in any zone. So it's defined in the zoning bylaw. It's even giving parking minimums, but then not allowed in any zone. A boarding house is an allowed use in the MR1 zone. So that's the multiple residential one, not the high density one that we were talking about in the previous. This is kind of the more in the town plat type of MR1. But the problem with boarding houses are, by the definition, they require food service. So you have to be getting meals. It's room and board. It's kind of an old-fashioned phrase. And I think it's a bit of an old-fashioned concept as well, as not something you see very much anymore. And having access to a kitchen, I think, is far more common. And as well, there's very murky language about whether this is an allowed use in a single family dwelling in any zone, or only an allowed use in the MR1 zone. It's also unclear at what point some of these things are just single family dwelling. It's not a biological relationship as far as zoning goes. It's not a marital relationship. It's just a single housekeeping unit. And that actually has to do with human rights law in this country. And there's a court case, and you can't say things are only for families anymore. So it's really, how are people living? What is their relationship to the house in that kind of sense? Are they all living together, or is it more people renting and sharing some things? And it's, these are murky and unclear and kind of fuzzy concepts, even at the best of times. So in review of this, it seems like the best path forward is to kind of clear everything up. And given the scale of this particular proposal, it definitely makes sense that it would go through the rezoning process. And I think it really needs these text amendments to work too, to kind of make the use clearer, and sort of bring it into the present day rather than a concept that hasn't really existed since the maybe 80s or 90s. So the text amendments, basically, we're getting rid of boarding house. That definition goes away. All the references to it go away. And rooming house is defined more clearly. And it has a metric for when do you say this is a single family dwelling, or when does it become rooming house, which is only allowed in certain zones. So it's lodging provided with 6 or more bedrooms. So not dwelling units, because a dwelling unit would be have its own kitchen, its own bathroom. So this has common kitchen and bathroom, and then it's not any of these other things, which if you put it this way, it makes it clear that it is this specific thing and not these other specific things. So that's an important thing to do when you're. And then say this use, this rooming house, this clearly defined thing with clearly defined numbers of bedrooms. And I'll get to the reason why it's 6 in a little bit. That is an allowed use in the MR1 zone. So make that clear. And still have some density limitations that go with the MR1 zone. So there's currently 6 meter per unit frontage requirement for apartments. So this kind of follows with the bedroom. Anyway, so this is what everything looks like, sort of given you a lot of text, but this is what things look like, and there hasn't been a whole lot of change since these aerials were taken. This is what the property looked like not too long ago. Actually, neat little trick. If you click in Google Maps, if you click on the see latest date, you can go back in time, and you can actually, for this property, you can see when it had the animal hospital sign. So it's a really kind of neat trick that I just learned about. And then on the right here, this is not too long ago, drone shot. Property is very deep. It goes way back. There's lots of room on the property. And so I did up a little diagram showing the different buildings, and the contractor has also done this up, showing that there's plenty of room for parking on the property, plenty of room for landscaping and everything else. And the driveway and the distance from the driveway to property lines to make sure it's meeting those requirements. And again, we're going to look at the municipal plan policies. Some of them are the same. This one we didn't talk about before, but it's really this spillover effect negatively impacting reasonable enjoyment of adjacent properties of surrounding areas that I want to highlight, just because there are sometimes concerns about rooming houses. So I think it's something worthwhile considering, and there's other aspects here that need to be considered as well, and that sort of feed into why the text amendments are there in crafting this amendment the way it has been crafted. These very similar to what we talked about. The developer has said he intends the people living here to be students and workers, and these would be much cheaper units because they're only a single room. I don't know actual numbers, but it should be relatively affordable. And the municipal plan policies speak specifically to meeting the needs of students. And I think we all know that MBCC struggles with enrollment for one reason, because of lack of housing. And this is not right there, but it's really not that far away. And just like in the last one, we're seeing really good progress on rental housing in St. Andrews, but there are some of it is affordable, but this is a new type of housing that really isn't seen in St. Andrews right now, the sort of rooming house style. It's close to large employers, really close to Algonquin. It's really not that far away from MBCC or Water Street, about a 20-minute walk, even quicker bike ride. And then, something that comes up with these kind of shared living spaces, unrelated people, there are these concerns that are very reasonable to have. So life safety is absolutely a concern. There's all sorts of horror stories when it comes to things not being done to code, having too many people in the same space, not having proper egress for fire and things like that. So that's absolutely a concern. And that is addressed very thoroughly in building and fire code. So this building has to be brought up to standards. And the reason why the 6-bedroom threshold was chosen, we spoke to the building inspectors about this, and that's the threshold where you have additional requirements in terms of life safety and fire safety. So I think you have to have sprinklers. It becomes a lot more important to have these things, and so that's why that 6-bedroom number was chosen. And then thinking back to those spillover effects, what are the potential spillover effects? You have noise. That's something that can happen. There's a noise bylaw in town, and that's really there to regulate exactly these things. Animal control, I don't know if that's a particular concern with rooming houses, but again, there's an animal control bylaw in town. Sewage and wastewater, those are addressed. Traffic, again, you have traffic bylaws. You have plenty, again, lots of room on this property for parking. And then there's dangerous and unsightly premises as well. That's a enforcement bylaw that the town can use if the property is really in bad states of disrepair. And there are some other matters as well that are dealt with in the text amendments. So offsite parking, rooming houses are defined and given parking minimums, or they actually had them before. So it deals with that already. And this property has lots of room. It deals with setbacks from other properties, buffering, landscaping, having amenity space. And there's also in the text amendment, there's references to residential properties maintenance and occupancy code. And that's it's a regulation. I can't remember if it's under Community Planning Act or Building Code Administration Act. It might actually be Local Governance Act. It's very extensive, these standards, at how detailed some of them are. And it's not that they need to be used, but it's good to remember they are there just in case. So there's lots of safeguards, I think, really is what I'm trying to demonstrate here, for the things that people generally get concerned about with rooming houses. And again, I think it's really good to think about these things in context and relatively. So, when you have unrelated people living together, there is opportunity for conflict. I've had roommates and people don't always get along, but that happens in all sorts of households, and it's really not the town's role to be involved unless there's spillover effects onto other people's properties that affect their enjoyment. And in my opinion, there are many safeguards that will ensure that does not happen. So I think this is a really needed type of housing. There's lots of controls to ensure that it would not be out of character for the neighborhood or cause people to have issues enjoying their property. The developer presented at council on June 5th. There will be a public hearing on July 4th. And just like with the last one, while there's no subdivision, so no subdivision agreement, servicing is probably not a particular concern here, but zoning bylaw amendment rezoning allows for resolutions and development agreements. So there's the opportunity for council to have even greater standards than what would be the norm for the zone or what are in the amendments. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thanks again, Mr. Gopin. Appreciate that. So again, we are being asked to provide our views on the, we're being asked to provide our views on the rezoning of the said property, as well as some text amendments. Are there any questions for Mr. Gopin or in general?
Madam Chair,
discussion?
just so you're aware, the proponent is in the room. So if you have any questions for Mr.
Pardon me.
Dominic, you
Thank you.
have the opportunity.
All right. Well, welcome. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the developer or anything else?
I just have one question, and it's more the sketch that was shown, and I know we're not sort of commenting on the sketch. What I would just recommend going forward, if this, I mean, I love the fact that it's conversion of an existing large house to a better use, and that's amendable. My recommendation is to make sure all the parking is in the back of the property. I saw in the sketch, and I know it was just quick sketch, but there was maybe like 6 or 7 parking at the front, and then a lot of it at the back. It'd be nice to tuck all the parking to the back of the property, just so that from the street you don't know that it's a multi person home, that it's more just like a typical large house, and it's sort of masquerading it as something else. So it's just nice to get all those vehicles tucked away so you don't really notice them so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I had the chance to hear the applicant speak at Monday's council, or of the June council meeting. I'm very excited by this. I agree with Dwight that it's lovely that an existing house is being converted to meet some of our needs within the town. I think that's wonderful. I think the location is great in terms of meeting some of those needs that we're currently experiencing. I love the look of the outside already. It already has changed that streetscape, part of that streetscape. So I'm excited to see it going forward. And I don't have any concerns at this point.
Thank you very much. Anything from you, Mr. Simmons? No, Mr. Kerr, Mr. Tanner?
Just to add to that as
Oh.
well, I think this is the first time that that building has never not been white. It's always been white. A guy I work with, Mike Craig, he said, I've never seen it in another color. It's always white. So it's nice.
Looks good. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So again, I hear some general positive observations. I think if I could just summarize what I've sort of heard, I think we all agree that the conversion of the existing building into some much needed housing in a different category perhaps is a great use of the building, and we all agree that it's a good location. So that's what I heard from the committee. Can I get a motion on that?
Like to make a motion that we look at rezoning this property from service residential zone to MR1, also with the text amendments to allow for a rooming house that Xander has put forward.
Is there a seconder? Thank you, Mr. Tanner. All right. So
Sorry.
if there's no more,
Oh.
no more discussion, I will ask the question. All those in favor of putting these views through to council, please signify by saying aye. And none opposed? Thank you very much. Wonderful. Thanks. All right, so we're going to hear from Mr. Gopin once more again tonight. We've been asked to provide our views for reference number PAC 230604. We're going to be providing our views on the proposed amendment to bylaw 09BS00901, a bylaw to amend Bayside Planning Area Rural Regulations. There's a first for us. So, Mr. Gopin, did you want to take this?
Okay, I will take it away. Now, this process started a long time ago at council, and I actually forgot this was on the agenda for tonight. I do not have a presentation for this, so I'm just gonna have to go through my planning report. And hopefully it's clear enough and straightforward enough. I don't think it's terribly complicated. I do apologize for not having a presentation. So let me just open my planning report for that. It's been a busy week for me. Those of you who know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. So hopefully you'll forgive me. Right, I think it is this one. Okay, so this is a it's a number of properties that are across the street from the industrial park in Bayside, and they're all currently zoned industrial. And how this all started was I got a call from one of the property owners there, excuse me, and he wanted to sell his property for residential use. And I looked at the zoning and said, oh, actually, you're in the industrial zone, and that does not allow for residential uses. I don't know if I think this was a vacant lot at the time. Yeah, this PID 1520339, fairly large, almost 7 acres, has lots of frontage on Route 127. So he wants to sell it for residential use, and that's really what's around it. Not necessarily across the street, but at least the properties adjacent to it. But can't do that in the zone. So it needs a rezoning to the rural zone if it's going to be developed for residential uses. So when I was reviewing that property, I noticed that the two properties adjacent to it, which are not vacant and have houses on them, those are also in the industrial zone. Non-conforming properties, and if they needed, if they wanted to expand or anything like that, it would be very challenging to issue building permits. They would have to go through an amendment process at that time. And there's a little bit of history to this. I think the Bayside Hall was intended to be institutional and became industrial. Councillor Weir, who actually happens to own one of these properties, is very knowledgeable on the history of this. For our purposes, it's not super relevant how this came to be, but it's pretty clear that moving forward, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So the town decided to put forward an administrative amendment and change the zoning of all three of those properties to the rural zone, which allows for residential uses. It allows for some commercial, a little bit beyond the scale of home-based businesses. But if you're familiar with that side of the Route 127, you can get a sense of what types of uses would be allowed around there. You've got golf courses, some institutional uses, tourism uses, things like that. So those are all possible, but currently these are just residential properties, and I don't have any indication that they would become anything else. So at least you can see some pictures. So this was the initial property, and I think there maybe was a house in it at one time, but it's been demolished. This was one of the other ones. And this one is another one there. You can see the house. And I think part of Simpson Hill is actually on this property. And we did, as directed by council, reach out to the other two property owners and make sure that they didn't have any issues with this, just in case they had made big plans based on that industrial zoning. But you can also, this is the Bayside Community Hall here, which is an institutional use. And really everything on this side of the road. There's some industrial zoning down here, but it's at least owned by the Regional Development Corporation. And it's not next to any residential uses now. So maybe that will change later with upcoming larger plan reviews. But it's a vacant treed lot currently from the road. There's a driveway going in, it has access. And you can see the zoning here. I think there were subdivisions that happened, and I'm not entirely sure why if it's just sort of mapping errors, but it doesn't entirely line up with the property lines. So we can fix all that with a simple amendment to rezone all those properties to the rural zone, allow the residential uses that make sense for that side of the road in the surrounding they're in. I think that's relatively straightforward. It's really just fixing an error that was discovered. And that's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gopin. All right, so here we are. We're gonna just, this seems to be more of a housekeeping issue, so.
Yeah, just as a frame of reference, I couldn't orient it from the pictures, but where would the old Bayside Reman sawmill fall in relation to this? Way before? Yeah. So is it across from the entrance to the port, or? Yeah. Okay.
Not by the Bayside Community.
It's right next to the Bayside Community Hall.
All right, great.
And I think there's actually a for sale sign on that piece of land right now.
Right, yeah,
That helps anybody on the left side of the road
yes,
if you're going into town.
okay. All right, any other questions or comments? Any concerns, or are we in support of, generally speaking? All right. Okay, so I'm hearing that we generally support the application to rezone these properties. If so, could I entertain a motion?
What the heck, right? I make a motion that council look at moving forward with the rezoning of these properties from industrial zone to rural zone for all three properties that mentioned in the report.
Perfect.
I second that.
Do we have- Thank you very much, Mr. Kerr. All right. So if we have no further discussion, if we're ready for the question, all those in favor of sending views to council in support of this rezoning, please signify by saying aye. And there being none opposed, I will do just that. Thank you very much. All right. Our next item on the agenda, PAC 230502. This is a terms and conditions application for a fence at 228 Montague Street for PID 01320787. I believe we're over to Ms. Pung now to take us through this report. Perfect.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I will just do a quick recap of the situation since we already had the presentation last month and we've already had some sort of discussions last month. So just gonna refresh our memories a little bit here. So this is the terms and conditions for a flankage yard fence at 228 Montague Street. PAC looked at it last month and had some concerns, so it was tabled and to be revisited this month. During the past month, staff has communicated with the contractor and the applicant. So the applicant actually has submitted additional documents. I believe that's in your package. It's basically another copy of their fencing concept. There's not much change to the original copy submitted to PAC, so context-wise, it's still the same. The contractor has also issued an apology because the directions was given to the lead contractor regarding what's allowed, what's not allowed, what's pending approval. But the lead contractor was away for a couple of weeks, and when the contractor came back, the portion that was not supposed to be built was built. So it was a broken communication. There was a miscommunication in the process, and he issued an apology saying that it was not an intentional violation of directions from development officers or PAC. And I believe the applicant also sent in a letter or comments to PAC, and I think town staff probably has a copy of it and would be presenting it to PAC. Other than that, I believe all the conditions stays the same. PAC has also given a little refresher course on the procedures and what terms and conditions is as a planning tool. So I think we're clear that what we're looking at today is to apply terms and conditions to this flankage yard portion of the fence. Planner's recommendation, staff's recommendation remains the same, but if PAC believes that there are necessary changes to be made to the recommendations, PAC is definitely allowed to do so. So that's pretty much it.
Thanks again. Thank you very much, Ms. Pung. Appreciate that. So I'm going to turn it over.
So Madam Chair, just so you're aware that the proponent is here, Mr. James Janot is here. If you have any other further questions or comments you wish to speak to, you have that ability.
All right. Does anyone in the committee want to ask any further questions, planner, the applicant, anything like that? Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. James, I just got one question. It's an easy one. When, no, you're, I mean,
If he's gonna respond.
oh, well, okay. Yeah.
If not, I'll scooch over.
Yeah.
Okay.
The only other, it's one little housekeeping thing that I want to know. So building the fence, I know that once the heat pump was in, and the reason we're moving the fence out 2 feet is to cover the heat pump, was looking at the heat pump and moving it back 2 feet. Was it even looked at, or we just, I just want some clarification, that's all.
Yeah, so actually the heat pump was originally placed there because our plan was to do that, we knew what the design of the fence was from the historical, so
Oh, okay.
we had put it there. And when Harbor Town had said that there was going to be a variance, the question was, well, do you move the heat pump, which was going to cost about, I think something around the $5,000 to get them to come in and unhook it and rehook it and put it into a new place like that. And I said, well, basically we want it to have that style that was from the original design, which was the bump out of 2 feet over, in 2 feet over, out 2 feet and back, which was what we were trying to accomplish anyhow. So decided to go with that route as opposed to incurring the cost to move the heat pump and make it a flat with the fence. So it was more of a keeping to the original design versus you know, the cost, I'll be honest.
So then just for clarification, because you're showing the fence in 2 different locations. There's the bump out, there's a return and the fence is there, or is it the bump out and the fence goes straight across?
Do you want to?
So you have this one, you have this one here, and then you also have this one here, where it's flat across. So I'm not sure which one.
Oh, sorry.
Which one are we
That's-
commenting
is
on?
that
Which
not
one are we
the-
approving? Right,
On the bump out
that,
around the heat
sorry,
pump.
yeah.
right.
So the original design that we had was it bumped out and it went flat, but then we realized that it actually isn't historically correct. It bumped out, went in, came back out and went in like that. But either way, in both of the designs, they were coming out by 2 feet. Yeah, and we're only commenting on the 2 month by 2 foot.
Okay.
Anything further? Anyone?
I want to tell them why we're here. James, the reason that we're here again is that the fact that for me, it's about protocols being followed. And mainly it was the building permit not being issued before it was done. And I'll accept the apology from the contractors that it was an error in sight. But I'm really picky with that. And that's why I had to make a motion the way it was to go forward. And then we've had a really nice meeting with Xander the other day. Well, just Monday. Wasn't just, and we've gone over some protocols and I feel much better about future situations, but that's why we're back here.
Okay.
All right, so we have some recommended terms and conditions here. So we have a recommended motion as well as the terms and conditions. If there are no other terms and conditions, then I would entertain a motion to apply the conditions that have been indicated on the planning report.
I'll move to accept the terms and conditions on the as outlined.
All right. Do we have a seconder? Thank you very much, Mr. Tanner. All right. I'm asking for any further discussion. I think it's sort of been discussed quite a bit. So if there is no further discussion, all those in favor of applying terms and conditions as set forth in the planning report, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed? Any opposed? None opposed? That is now complete. Thank you very much. All right, so I believe that takes care of most of it. Thanks, guys. All right, so here we go. We have no sign applications. No new business, no PAC member comments unless there are any. No?
I have a question for Xander.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Ask me next time I'm at the hearing.
Good night, planners.